Hey everyone, welcome to The Seven Eighths, a podcast to share stories on failures and rejections. There may not be any fairy tale endings in this podcast. My guests aren't past the mountain of struggle. In fact, some of them might still be in it. I hope this podcast serves as a forum for friends and acquaintances to exchange tales of defeat that make the 7/8 part of our lives. You know, like the part of the iceberg that you can see. By sharing these stories, I hope we can all normalize failures and hence win over that fear of defeat. Because failing is just a part of living. I hope you will relate. Do leave me a note of feedback, and critique is welcome as well. You can find me on Twitter @FamNectar. Now, on to our episode. Welcome to episode 23 of The 7/8ths. This episode is a conversation between me and Navjot Sawhney. Navjot Sawhney is the founder of the Washing Machine Project. Nav was born and brought up in London, but his family is from the unpartitioned India. During the 1947 Indian independence, Nav's father and his family fled their home from what is now Pakistan with only the clothes on their back. This has always been the foundation of why Nav wants to help people fleeing conflict. Whether it is building life-saving cookstoves in rural India or being a trustee of Engineers Without Borders UK, Nav has always been passionate about helping others with a particular interest in international development. He has helped build clean water systems for an orphanage in Namibia, volunteered time at a local homeless shelter for migrants in London, and done much more. With over 5 years of professional engineering experience at global technology companies like Dyson and Jaguar Land Rover, Nav realizes that he is at the perfect moment to combine his desire to help people with his engineering skills. Nav and I talked about his childhood, his journey through ups and downs of the Washing Machine Project, how he handles failures, and much more. It is time for us to pull up a chair and just listen in. Welcome to The 7/8ths, Nav. I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. I started The 7/8ths to talk about failures. The reason I wanted to focus on failures is because people only see success stories all around them. They hear about wins, but they rarely hear about the struggles that go through before we get to the wins. So 7/8ths is a simple endeavor to throw light on all of the struggles, rejections, the setbacks that we have to go through in order to get the win. So thank you for agreeing to be on The 7/8ths.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Now, a little bit of intro about the work that you do, Nav. So you are the founder, the CEO, the engineer, the marketing head for the Washing Machine Project. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Washing Machine Project?
Yeah, I mean, the backstory from the Washing Machine Project is really quite interesting in how I got there. But the mission that we're on right now is we design, manufacture, and distribute low-cost manual crank handle washing machines that save time, water, and effort for people who hand wash clothes.
And how did you get inspired to pursue this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, and I think it's 30 years in the making. So I was a very young, curious child growing up in London, the UK, and my father was an aerospace engineer, and he'd take me to air shows. I'd come back home and I'd take apart appliances, and I would break everything with the toolbox from the shed, and that used to really make my mum quite angry. And I was born to parents and grandparents that fled partition. So
Oh.
displacement has always been kind of ingrained into me.
Mm-hmm.
And my father died when I was very young, so I knew kind of from a very young age the importance of women around the world. And these kinds of, these three kind of themes in my life led me to studying aerospace engineering at university here in the UK, and I failed my first year, which is a
Oh.
really interesting story. And I joined one of the best grad programs in the country, if not the world. And I graduated top of my class. I was at this company for 3 years, and I realized that every bit of good engineering that I'm doing is making vacuum cleaners for rich people. So I decided to quit my job and move to South India to make cookstoves, a problem that
Mm.
affects a large part of the world. And there, when I was making cookstoves, a lady called Divya was my next door neighbor, and she changed my life. And she became the kind of inspiration behind the washing machine project, and helping women who have to hand wash clothes and spend hours and hours a day doing it.
There was a lot there to unpack, but thank you for that awesome
Yeah.
walk through your life journey so far. Maybe we start off with your childhood. You kind of mentioned that a little bit. So you grew up in London.
Yeah, grew up in West London,
Mm-hmm.
also known as Southall. If you've ever heard about Southall,
Yeah.
it's nicknamed the Mini India,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a kind of melting pot of culture. This is a place where my mum and my father called home, and yeah, I always felt really misunderstood. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I uh, think I was probably on the spectrum, an underdiagnosed behavioral condition, because I think often enough Asian parents or South Asian parents don't really agree with mental health issues or kind of behavioral problems. So I'm sure I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
something when I was a kid, because my attention was very very low. I was not very kind of stimulated by anything around me. I found so much pleasure in breaking things and trying to
Mm.
fix them again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and when my father died when I was 8 years old, um, my mother kind of instantly said to my teachers at school that Nav needs responsibility, and he needs to be held accountable. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that decision was a really interesting one. And ever since then, I've really loved to be leading things and um, uh, being responsible for things.
Wow, you touched on a couple of things, and I hope it's okay to kind of double click into them. How did you navigate through not just, you know, struggling with not being able to focus, but on top of that, losing your dad at such a young age?
Yeah. I guess my only realization to that was very recently, only in the last couple of years, did I realize that actually no, it's not normal to lose focus so often, or it's not normal to have all your effort to be kind of put into one one thing and feeling so exhausted because you're trying to concentrate so hard, but you're just not interested. And so, there
Mm-hmm.
were particular things I was super interested in. I loved communicating with people. I loved
Mm-hmm.
extracurricular activities, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
place all my focus in them. But the kind of traditional ways of education were really hard. I kind of used to daydream a lot in class. The death of my father was sudden. It was overnight,
Oh, wow.
and I was too young to really understand what was happening. So, at the time I didn't really know what was happening. So, but we were quite poor, and my mother came to this country with with two master's degrees and only five
Mm-hmm.
pound in her pocket. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of questioned, why do we have to have the cheapest things? And I was always not very appreciative of my surroundings, I think. So it was a real melting pot of different issues growing up.
Yeah, yeah. Did that have a role in kind of the what you positioned as a failure in your undergrad?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my undergrad, I think I just really was misguided, and I surrounded myself with people that didn't really help
Mm-hmm.
my cause. I needed to like make a lot of effort to just get by. I wasn't the type of person. You have these really incredibly clever people that just get it straight away. I was never, and I am never that person. I don't think I really need to make effort to try and learn things, and I thought I kind of really miscalculated my first year. I thought I could
Mm-hmm.
just get by with little to no effort, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of you know the results were you know the results were like very clear to see that I failed quite significantly in my first year. And then what I did was I love when the kind of chips are down, and people say that I can't do it. I love almost
Mm-hmm.
kind of proving them wrong, and whatever it takes, and not taking no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
um, and kind of I came back to uni with a new resolve, and surrounded myself with really kind of pure-hearted people, friends for life. These people are really incredible people that supported me throughout
Mm-hmm.
the rest of my university career, and really appreciative of those formative years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. After having gone through that transformation, you graduated top of class. You're still in engineering, and I'm assuming you had the job right after undergrad where you worked for Dyson. Is that right? How did you decide to make a pivot? And I'll ask this question. Can I give you a little bit more uh, depth to that question?
Sure.
So, you know, you describe yourself as someone that has struggled, in your early childhood through school because of a variety of different reasons. And then finally, you are tasting success, or what at least the world perceives as success.
Mm.
At that moment, to be able to go in and say, all this is great, things are going really well, but I want to pivot. How did you even arrive at that decision?
Yeah, it's a good one. And to be honest, things weren't going well at Dyson.
I see.
I was there for three
Mm-hmm.
years. I had so much fun in
Mm-hmm.
the kind of first 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
innovating new generation technology,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that was planned to come out in 5 to 10 years, and
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
was just really cool to be a part of that process. But I was not happy as a
Mm.
uh, you know I kind of just lost the love of engineering at the time, and I felt that my engineering could help people more. And I felt there was just so much effort going into something that was incremental change on a £500 or $750 vacuum cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that, the efforts of this incremental change could give someone clean water or
Mm-hmm.
light or
Mm-hmm.
heating or clean clothes, and I wanted to be on that side of things. So I remember at the time in my third year at Dyson, I was looking around for different opportunities, and this Engineers Without Borders opportunity came up, and I was really interested in applying for it. I think it was March at the time. I called them, and they said that they've just closed their round of applications, and they said come back in September, and we'll be open
Mm-hmm.
again. And I remember putting a calendar reminder in my
Mm-hmm.
diary at work saying call Engineers Without Borders UK in September.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself still in the same position, still on the same desk. I called them, and so I applied to this Engineers Without Borders position to make cookstoves in South India,
Mm-hmm.
and I was successful in that application process, and it meant that I had to quit my job,
Mm.
and I wasn't ready to do that. I remember I was begging for my job to come back to, so sabbatical.
Yeah.
I remember there was loads of emails flying back and forth between really senior people. They didn't let it happen. There wasn't a policy for sabbaticals, and so with great hesitation, I quit my job, and I realized that very I only realize now that was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a fear of failing when you took on this opportunity with Engineers Without Borders?
Yeah, I mean, in my first week, when I first arrived, it was monsoon in
Oh gosh.
Pondicherry.
Mm-hmm.
I travelled through the night. It was hailing it down,
Mm-hmm.
and there's storms. There was blackout. It was hot, 41 degrees, 42 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
and I was being bitten left, right, and centre with mosquitoes,
Mm-hmm.
and I hated every minute of my first 2 weeks.
Ouch.
Uh, it was Diwali as well, and
Okay.
so I missed
It
my
must
family.
be,
So I
yeah.
remember
Yeah.
I was so depressed. I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I made the biggest mistake of my life, and my Marcy's gave me some really good advice. She said, "Keep at it. It's only early days, and you might enjoy it." And I little did I know that I went back and kind of just like failing my first year at university. I came back. I surrounded myself with the community and
Mm-hmm.
learnt us so much, and I loved every single minute from that Mumbai trip onwards.
Did the washing machine project follow right after?
Yeah, but there was a bit of like incubation period, certainly in my own mind. Divya's my next door neighbor who I lived with in Pondicherry, and Divya's every day was a struggle, whether it
Mm-hmm.
was foraging for wood to cook her food, standing
Mm-hmm.
in line for water,
Mm-hmm.
educating her 7-year-old son in darkness, or
Mm-hmm.
having to hand wash her clothes and her family's clothes. From the moment she woke up to the moment she slept, even during sleep, it was a struggle with 40-degree heat and no fans, no air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
no no proper medicine for malaria and things like that. And it meant that there's so much opportunity that was missed for Divya, who was a stay-at-home mum with 2 kids. Her husband would work 18, 19 hours a day as a taxi driver,
Oh
and
wow. Mm-hmm.
she would have to look after the house, and she wanted to work but just didn't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
She spoke perfect English as well, learnt in high
Oh, wow.
school,
Mm-hmm.
never
Mm-hmm.
used since. And for Divya, this is such a huge lost opportunity for livelihood and education and prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I saw this, and you know, through the different struggles as a as a as an engineer, I said, I can make this better for you. I can help you, and that's where the washing machine project was born as an idea. I
Mm-hmm.
came back home. I did a couple of things. I joined Jaguar Land Rover to get some money, and
Mm-hmm.
I did a master's as well
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in humanitarianism, and then
Mm-hmm.
I started the washing machine project. But I started the washing machine project in August, so I thought about it for probably 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? I
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot. I did the masters, and that really helped kind of incubate the idea in my own head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, Instead of a volunteer organization, it's now become a kind of, instead of a side hustle, it's become the main hustle, so to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
now I have a small team of 4 people that all rely on salaries and the washing machine project to do well.
The washing machine project has been getting a lot of focus and attention and media. Talk to me about the struggles that you had with even getting this escape velocity, if you will, with this effort, with this initiative.
Yeah, I mean, starting anything new is so hard. Like, to get the traction and the coverage, and for people to feel like you have the credibility to work with you, and to get to that stage is so difficult. There's countless experiences that I've had where people wouldn't even have a meeting with us because we're too new, or
Mm-hmm.
we're just, it's a joke.
Right.
So, and I don't have any bitterness towards that, but I think the mission is pure. Hand washing clothes is really inefficient. It takes up so much time, effort, and water, and it's disproportionately placed on women. This problem hasn't been solved for 70% of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Come on the journey with us to try and solve it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
slowly, from engineering failures for the product not working to funding issues to media and PR getting the exposure that we deserve, everything has been a struggle. But I really believe that you create your own success, and it's really within our own hands to take it to more and more people.
Mm-hmm. Can you share maybe a couple of your hardest moments on this journey?
Yeah, there's a particular moment where we were making machines for a pilot last year
Mm-hmm.
in Iraq, and the machines were just not working. I was alone. It was 7 a.m. I was in the workshop, and there's this realization that these machines are just not turning. They're not working, and there was just a fundamental design flaw in the batch that we created, and it had detrimental impact on the pilot if it wasn't fixed. And at that point, that was probably the loneliest period in my life, because I felt like we couldn't do it. But I had a bit of a cry and called my engineering counterpart and tried to come back with some solutions. And I think it's with entrepreneurship and starting anything new, it's always having that tunnel vision of, you can't even see the light, but you're still gonna keep going, you know. One way or another, it will be okay.
Mm-hmm. And what was your highest joyous moment?
For me personally, it's about getting this machine in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I distribute these machines, or we distribute these machines in the field, it's such a fulfilling feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's been incredible. And obviously, it's really nice to have all the coverage and have people that support us
Mm-hmm.
from so many different areas and different countries around the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some growth numbers that you're seeing with this initiative?
Yeah, so just in the last 3 months, we've had requests for 3,000 machines, 27
Wow.
countries,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't spent one penny on marketing. So it's really reassuring to see so much demand. I'm really excited for the future as we scale up and ramp up to kind of
Mm-hmm.
12,000 machines a year.
And my best wishes for that. What are your fears as you're scaling, launching, and deploying?
My personal fears is that we create something that people don't use. And I would rather take another 10 years to develop a machine than put something out that's not ready.
Through this entire journey, Nav, you've had personal failures, setbacks. You've also struggled, and you're continuing to possibly, struggle with scaling the washing machine project. What is your approach to handling setbacks and failures and rejections almost on an everyday basis, right?
I think it's if you're starting something new and it's innovative and it's not been done by very many people, you really need to get used to failure. But you also need to getting really comfortable with failure, and also really kind of learning to not accept no as an answer. And
what has the failures taught you about yourself?
That through every kind of dark failure there is a light, but you won't be able to see that light, and it's your job to just stay with it.
I mean, I enjoyed our conversation. You've described the struggles in a very raw, authentic way. It deeply touched me when you very openly said, hey, I'm not probably as smart as the rest of my peers. I recognize that. I might have to put in a lot more effort than my friends to get the same outcome, and I recognize that. That was deeply moving, because many of us, we tend to go down the path of comparing ourselves to, the effort versus outcome. And just the recognition that, hey, each one of us is different. So there's no way of comparing ourselves with others. To understand that, I think, is very helpful. I also liked how you said that you don't have any bitterness towards failures. I think a lot of the heartache that we have is really that bitterness that we hold towards failures. And you kind of just freed yourself by not having bitterness towards failures. And how you phrased, you create your own successes. That is how you define success, and how you create them is entirely in your hands. So it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Nav, for the time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And that's how the cookie crumbles. Nav reminded us not to compare ourselves to our peers when it comes to effort versus outcome. We all are differently talented, and focusing on what we can do best will relieve us from the pressure of expecting the same outcome. Nav doesn't hold any bitterness to failures. Isn't that a refreshing position to take? I am going to try it and feel the lightness of the experience. Thank you for listening to this episode. Do share your thoughts. I am on Twitter @FarmNectar. Until the next conversation. Cheers, everyone.